Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Legaltech Hub Product Briefing. I'm Stephanie Wilkins, the Director of Content at Legaltech Hub, and today I'm here with Caspar Roxburgh, the Product Lead at Draftable. Thanks for joining us, Caspar.
It's a real pleasure, Stephanie. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you. So before we get started into the demo, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about yourself and about Draftable Legal.
Yeah, sure. So as you introduced, I'm the product lead for Draftable. So my job effectively is to speak to lawyers, legal teams, law firms, understand their problems and find the right solution for them, work with our team to deliver it. It's a lot of fun. And a bit more about Draftable is we're a document comparison provider. We've been doing document comparison for over 13 years. And we have a history actually in general purpose document comparison for professional services. And about 4-5 years ago, we started to receive a lot of inbound requests from law firms and legal teams asking for a legal specific comparison tool, which we developed and released in 2023. It's called Draftable Legal, and it's just taken off since then. We've had over 900 teams and law firms adopt it. And yeah, that's what I'm excited to show you today.
Great. And you're going to be showing us a little bit of a run through of it. So maybe if you want to give us a little bit of a preview of what you might be showing us, and then we'll get you to share your screen and give us a little bit of a drive-by.
What we usually show people is a bit of a kind of a day in the life of a comparison user. I imagine a lot of your audience would be familiar with Compare. It's been around for decades. So I'll be giving you a quick kind of walkthrough of a standard Compare workflow and just highlighting a few of the things that Draftable does differently and trying to articulate our kind of philosophy to product development along the way.
That sounds perfect. I think we should just jump right in if you want to share your screen.
Okay, so what you're looking at now is Draftable Legal on my desktop machine. So it's a desktop software. Everything gets processed on the user's machine. So there's no sharing documents with Draftable at this stage. We're actually developing a browser-based web application so we can provide access through a web browser in future. That'll be coming next year. But for now, that's what you're looking at. Now, you might notice that there's some familiarity in the way it's designed with the like tabs up the top here. And that's actually deliberate. So we've taken inspiration from the modern web browser, think Edge or Chrome, because one of the things we're trying to do with Draftable is make it really easy to use and familiar straight off the bat. So the philosophy is it should be easy to use. It should be available where it is needed. And I'll give you a bit of more of a sense of what that looks like in practice. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do when you're running a compare workflow is obviously find your files for comparison. Now, obviously, Draftable has a way to browse files locally. You've got integrations to iManage, SharePoint, NetDocs, Epona as well, other solutions, and you can actually do free text input as well. That's great, but for most lawyers, most of the time, they're time poor. They need things to work where they work. They don't want to context switch. Nobody wants to open up Draftable to start their workflow, and we understand that. So we've built over 25 different ways that you can load files into Draftable. I'm not going to go through them all. Obviously, we don't have time for that, but I'll just give you the quick highlights for the most important ones that your audience would expect to see. So starting with Outlook, got an email, got a bunch of attachments, and somebody's asked me for a redline ASAP. So Draftable has both a COM add-in as well as a modern JavaScript add-in, which will allow you to compare the attachments from any email. So you just hit those, you get a little selection menu here, you choose the ones that you need, and off you go, ready to compare. So that's nice and easy. You can also simply drag and drop files in, which is actually a really popular way of loading files. That's based on usage data, that's the most common way that people like to do it. We also have right click. We also have a ribbon menu here with the COM add-in. And the reason why there's just so many permutations of how you can get files in is, again, to try and make it really easy for the lawyer who's time poor, who has a certain way of working. If they want to right click, they should be able to right click. So our philosophy is really to meet the users where they need. And as you can see, you can drop in text there as well. So I'll jump into Word very briefly. I won't go through it all, but again, you can select an open Word document, drop it in as an older or newer file. You can actually compare, choose, like I did for the attachments from Outlook, I can have a list of every open Word document on my computer and I can choose from those. And if I've got a Word doc open, but it's actually checked out from iManage or NetDocs, I have the option to load that file and latest version or the previous version from my DMS and then have those compare as well. And I will also quickly show you from iManage, just because it's often very important to see it from a DMS, right? So with iManage and with NetDocs, we have that flexibility that we can be a little bit more powerful in how we do file comparison loading. So if I right click a file, in this case, it's a file with 6 versions, I can just hit compare, that'll load the file in. I can hit compare with latest, it'll load the 2 most recent versions to compare. I can hit compare versions, and it's going to do, again, similar to what we saw with Outlook. It's going to generate a full list of all the versions that are available, and it'll let me to pick the ones that I want to actually compare. And of course, I've got to log into my iManage because it's logged me out, but once it does, it should work fine. There we go. So you can see all the versions. I select my 2 files and bang, off I go. And obviously we use things like metadata to make sure it's organized properly. If I make a mistake, I can hit select version. It opens up that menu again. I can make a change. Okay, let's run some compares. So I've got some files loaded. Now in the launcher here, I can compare any kind of file I want. Any file type, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to change what program I'm using or anything like that. We ask people 2 questions before they run a compare. One is, what kind of comparison do you want to run? Redline in Draftable is standard. It opens inside Draftable. I'll show you that in a minute. But if you prefer to work in Word, or if you're doing Excel and PowerPoint, you want to just open it in Microsoft Office, you can absolutely do that. We don't ask people to work inside a Draftable when they don't need to. You can just jump straight to your workflow and keep going. The other thing we have here is Profile. Profile is effectively the name that we use for rendering sets. Be familiar with from other products in comparison. So in the settings menu, and of course this can be managed by your administrators, you've got all the things you would expect to see. You can mark up how the changes appear. You've got what you want to compare, what you don't want to compare, etc. Specific things for Excel and PowerPoint. So let's run a compare. And at the same time, I'll just show you this tab feature. So I've just hit a new tab and I can actually run a new comparison. I can do that straight away while I'm running that other comparison. So let's get an Excel going, do another one here. That's just so I can show you one of our features later. So now I've got 3 compares running. The first one's complete. You can see a little Word icon there. So it's nice and easy to know that was the Word documents. I'll just maximize it so we can take a better look. And now what you're seeing on screen is our dedicated comparison viewer window. So I'll quickly just highlight, we've got Draftable's purpose-built legal specific algorithm that can do things that like a word compare can't do, like picking up moves from outside the table into the body of the text with an edit, and all of that kind of precision that you would expect to see from a dedicated legal tool is there. I've got a change list. It's clickable. It's filterable. It'll jump to the change as I click on things. I've got a very powerful set of filters that I can apply here based on the content, the location of change, the type of change. We also offer the ability to drop a note like, please check, a free note, and any tags that you might like to apply. And your administrators can actually set up custom tags for your organization as well. So these are just the pre-built ones. So I've left a couple of tags there. Now, if I need to see anything in context, I can also pull up the input files and jump to a change and sync scroll between them. So I can just double check that very easily. If I made changes to an input document, synced it to my DMS, I can refresh that immediately. I don't have to rerun the compare. And I've also got the ability to hide any unchanged pages dynamically inside of the viewer. So there's an example there. That's an unchanged page that's been hidden. If I want to show it, I can just click it open. I can close it. So as you can see, we've tried to spend a lot of time making it a really smooth and easy process to just review the comparison. Now I've done my review. I've made some notes. This is great. What do I do next? Well, I have the option to just open up the Redline. I can open it up in any format, so I'm not locked in. I can do a PDF Redline, a docx Redline. I can get a change pages only, and departures table, which I'll show you in a minute. Obviously, saving to your DMS, new file, new version, related, attachment, etc. All of that is available in any format. But I'll quickly just show you the email workflow because it's the most powerful one here. So in this case, I'm going to generate an email to send to a colleague with the Redline and with my review notes as well. So what I'd like to do is give them the Redline. I'm going to do it as a PDF. I'm just going to go ahead and rename it on the fly. So I've got that like pre-built profile-based output file name, but I'm actually just going to rename it there. I'm going to attach the original file, but I'm going to convert it to a PDF. It was a Word document. So I'm just going to rename that as well. Got the modified file here, which I want them to keep working on. So I'll just say keep working on this one. So I'll leave that as a Word document. And then I'm going to add in what we call a departures table. So it's a relatively new feature that we've included. It's basically an issues list. What it does is it pulls the change list, and then it can either be a filtered change list or the complete one. And it's going to organize the changes by the clause. It's going to show you the entire clause. It's going to include all my notes and tags, and I can actually include it in the body of the email. So I'm ready to go here. Let's redo that as red line, and I'll hit email. So what Draftable is going to do is it's going to prepare the exported PDF. It's going to convert the input file, the original input file. It's going to rename it. It's going to generate an email for Outlook, which has just popped up there. You can see everything, and it's also got this departures table in the body of the email. And you can see here, for example, I've left a tag and a note here, and it's available in the review notes. Now, in this case, basically the way it works is anything that comes before a numbered clause is going to be a preamble. And then once you actually get to the numbered clauses, you're going to see which clause has been marked up. And you can see that the changes are actually showing markup around the other text in the clause. So the idea here is basically that you don't need to send somebody a whole red line. If they don't have time to look through it, you can basically just give them a structured table of all the changes available. That's probably the simplest way to run through the workflow in Draftable. You can see a couple of these other compares here. So here's what our Excel comparison looks like, very similar to Excel. Change list shows shows formula changes as well, so that you can understand that. A feature we're getting a lot of excitement about, it's called redline and email, and it's basically delivering people redlining capability inside of Outlook directly. So in this case, I will show you something that might be familiar to some of your audience. It's an email I've received from a colleague, and he says, see changes below. And there's basically been a chain of email internally, and we've been going through some terms for a licensing agreement. People have been making edits, but they haven't been signaling what's changed by changing the color or anything like that. So we've built an add-in, or it's part of our modern add-in, that allows you to compare using Draftable just from a side panel like this. You can compare against an earlier email. So what Draftable is going to do is grab an earlier email from this conversation and run a comparison directly here in Outlook. And if you ever want to change which message in the conversation it's running the compare against, you can do that very easily like this. And so now you can see I've got all the markup that's happened since the first email draft was sent in this conversation, which is handy, kind of cool. But then to complete the workflow, I can actually jump into an accept and reject change flow right here in the sidebar. So I'll just get rid of those because they're not really relevant to the actual thing that we're working on. I'll make some accepts, complete all that work. Great. And then I can either create a new email, or I can just copy this text once it's finalized and drop it into an email that I'm writing that I've already got drafted.
Nice.
So that's the very quick version of this. You can also redline your changes before you send it to somebody, or accept reject changes that have actually been redlined, but I'll spare your audience the time there.
Yeah. No, that's great. We all know the email back and forth can be a bit of a nightmare sometimes.
Yep. Yes, it can. And that's the reason why we built it.
Well, that was great. Thank you for giving us that really quick run through. I know there's always a lot more you can show us, but given the time, that was a really great overview. But for people who do have more questions, we will be putting a URL at the bottom of the screen, so you can reach out to Draftable, Caspar and his team, find out more about the product, find out more about Draftable Legal, ask all your questions. And with that, thank you for joining us today, and thank you all for watching.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. It's been a real pleasure.